You are about to get undignified before the Lord. And I think when we hear undignified, we think classless, tasteless. When I think undignified, I think about David, and I think about how much I aspire to be so completely abandoned before the Lord that even it rivals the grave that was left empty on a Sunday. That's the kind of surrender that I strive to reach. And there's times I look back on days when I thought I was so free in my worship. And then 15 years down the road, and I danced on sidewalks, and I realized there's always a different layer of freedom in being undignified. You know, the Bible says that David danced out of his clothes, which sounds crazy. But if you ever danced around the living room in one sock and like the underwear that you had on yesterday, all because you were downstairs crying, it was the middle of the night, and you were just praying, and before you know it, the Lord tells you to move your feet, and before you know it, you're crying, and before you know it, you're laughing, and before you know it, you are dancing on the grave that the devil may have, even if he's not in it yet, but one day he will be. And you're about to get undignified before the Lord. Joy is coming in the morning. David had on this sackcloth of mourning, and God said, for the sackcloth of mourning, put on the garment then of praise. This isn't quite my style. If you don't know me, let me introduce myself. This is not quite my style. But I had a meet in town today, and me and my son stopped at a local store, and it was on clearance, and I don't know why, but I loved it. I was like, that is so ugly, it's cute. It's so cute, it's ugly. And that tells me it's grungy, and I can take it home. It really just reminds me of one of those grandma sweaters that Kurt Cobain would have wore, and I felt okay about buying it, but at the same time, these little varsity patches of sunshine, of smiley faces, reminds me of joy. And when I leave with it and put it on, not only is it comfortable, not only does everybody notice it, not only does everybody like it, but I think not only is it me, but it's a little bit me elevated. I love grungy old grandma sweaters because I love Kurt Cobain, and I love grunge back in the root of grunge, not the new wave of grunge. I love the old grunge. And if I'm not dressed for work and you see me out and about, if I have on a blazer, I've been to work. If I'm in something just laid back with Doc Martens, you're meeting me, you're meeting Brooke. You're not meeting Shepherd, you're meeting Brooke. And I'm here to like get a Starbucks and do some damage at town. But usually what happens is I don't really do damage at town, and I end up witnessing to somebody, and then one of us leaves crying in a good way. God's just good like that. But when I look about these, it's like they really are varsity patches. They're made just like one. It's like you've elevated so far. And even though I love black, most of my closet is blacks and grays and dark colors and dark hues. And it's still me. It's just me elevated. It's just me happy. It's just me joyful. And instead of the garment of mourning is the garment of praise. If you were to know me in person and you've ever been in a church building with me, you'll know one thing about me when I worship. When I'm going to jump around, I'm going to need some space. But I'm also going to close my eyes while I'm doing this. And most of the time, I'm going to be turned to the back of the door. Won't even know it, but I come to expect it. And every time I open my eyes, whether it's a home church, whether I'm preaching there, whether I'm pastoring there, or whether I've never been here ever, I'm going to end up turned towards the door. And I don't even know worship is over sometimes, and the preacher's already started going, and especially if I'm not up there, I ain't got to worry about it. And I'm turning around and I'm looking at the door, and about 100 people behind me looking at me, like, and it don't bother me. It don't bother me. It's so nice to be an example of being undignified before the Lord, because I forget where I'm at. All I know is it's about me and God, and it ain't about nobody else. Get ready for your season of undignified. Because when God has been so good to you and you just expect God to be God, and you live in expectancy of God, because if you can expect anything, it's that God will be God. He is the same today, yesterday, forever. He's still a miracle worker. He's still a stone mover. He still splits highways in the middle of the sea. And he still swallows enemies when we can't take them ourselves. He's still that God, and he's still that good, and the good news is still good. A lot of times I think we consume a lot of doomsday type stuff. I don't, but I know a lot of people that do, and they come into my office because I'm a pastoral counselor all through the week. People come into Zoom, and if it's local, they come into my office, and they look at me, and they're like, I'm so nervous. Like, what you been watching? What you been consuming? And they're like, well, I heard this prophecy about the end times, and yes, one day the end of the world will be here. But are we going to have a worry about it? No. Are we going to have a worry about it? No. Here's the thing about prophecy. Sometimes it is about stuff like that. Sometimes it's a warning. But I grew up in the church. There's rings through my body of that church just like a tree. And I don't mean it in the unhealthy religious way. I just mean I'm so rooted in order, I don't know what else there is. And I feel safe in order. And God is a God of order. That's why you feel safe when you know what's going on. When someone is in charge, maybe that's you, but then God's in charge, and it just all feels safe. If I know one thing to be true about prophecy, is that it's all for edification at the end of the day. That prophecy should always lead you back to Jesus. It shouldn't leave you confused. It shouldn't leave you without peace. If it gives you conviction, that just means, hey, I might need to change that, and the Lord's going to help me do that. But it's never in a way that you can't come back to the Father. It's never like that. And as long as I've been around, what I know to be true about God is he's still so good. He could warn you about something, tell you to quit, knock it off. He could be upset, but he won't be upset forever. Because all he's trying to do forever is draw you back unto himself. And all he's ever been trying to do is get you to love him back. When I give altar calls, it's always so odd to me because I do have visions, and I know sometimes I'll be standing on a pulpit and I'll know it's time for an altar call. And I can just almost see and feel the Lord sitting in a corner. I don't know how else to explain it to you. Almost like a little child. And I'll never forget God asking me one time, and it moved me to tears, and I didn't really even know what to do in this altar call, except for tell him what I saw. And I kept hearing the Lord say, do they love me now? Do they love me now? Do they love me now? Just like in anticipation of being picked for a game of dodgeball, of being finally picked. And God will chase you to the ends of the earth, baby. I don't know where you are. And I don't know how this word took a turn of tears. But you're exiting your season of tears. And maybe you hold yourself to a lot of things that you did, but God's not trying to hold you to it. That's what grace is for. God isn't trying to hold you to it. He's trying to carry you past it so that you take off this potato sack of crying and mourning and being depressed and in despair. And maybe, just maybe, you're you and you're still you. You're still a little more elevated, a little more colorful, but you're still you, only better. Welcome to your elevation season. Welcome to your upgrade. Welcome to your varsity year. God's going to do great things with you, kid. Chin up.